This debate today is indeed an opportunity for us all to reform our solidarity with people of Ukraine. And it gives me a great honour to close on behalf of the Labour Party. For displaced people from Ukraine in Scotland, a concrete solution has been long awaited. In the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine almost 2 years ago, the SNP government promised a warm Scottish welcome for those displaced. As Kit Brown pointed out, Scotland has been able to host 20% of Ukrainians in the UK. Both ordinary Scot and public service providers have pulled out all the stops and given displaced Ukrainians a very warm welcome and vital support. Not to mention organisations such as the Scottish Refugee Council, who have been working flat out to help the refugees find housing in the middle of housing crisis. We must now support the amazing actions of Scot and local authorities with a long-term, solid solution which allows Ukrainian refugees fair access to housing, education and healthcare. This plan must remain in place for all those who may be still to come as Putin's unlawful war in Ukraine continues. As the Cabinet Secretary pointed out, the super sponsor scheme saw many ordinary Scots step up and house those most in need in the aftermath of Russia's invasion. As Alex Cole-Hamilton mentioned, this was an excellent scheme which saw many Scots open their homes to displaced people from Ukraine. But it was not a permanent solution. We must remember that it was the SNP that temporarily housed Ukrainian refugees in boats in both Edinburgh and Glasgow, because it had no prepared anywhere else from them to stay. Those housed, I'm tight for time. I'll take your intervention.
Ben McPherson, briefly.
Would Mr Chowdhury acknowledge that in many cases, arguably the majority of feedback from the Ukrainian community in the Lothian region that he represents, that those who were on the MS Victoria in Leith had a very positive experience and spoke very positively about how they were looked after and supported during that period?
Faisal Chowdhury, and I can't give you that time back.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your intervention, and I had the privilege of visiting both of the boats, the one in Leith and the one in Glasgow. And yes, we do have positive response, but we are talking for long-term solution. As I was coming to my, as I was coming to the my speeches, those housed on the boat had begun to build lives where they were docked. They built a relationship, sent their children to local schools, and got to know the areas. Of course, the lease of the boats had to come to an end, and the refugees housed there were once again moved to a new place and had to begin again. This was due to lack of long-term plan. Deputy Presiding Officer Paul Kane and my colleague Paul Sweeney highlighted that Ukrainians are 4 times more likely to find themselves facing homelessness than the wider population. This is in the middle of a housing emergency across Scotland, where homelessness reaches close to 5,000 households in house a night in Edinburgh alone. And I appreciate Cabinet Secretary intervention that there could be a different data in Scotland, which I will await for. Miles Briggs rightly pointed out that sustainable solutions are urgently needed to reduce the impact of this on Ukrainian and everyone in Scotland. A long-term concrete plan is a long overdue. The war in the Ukraine is not over, and as long as Putin's illegal war continues, Scotland must be both welcoming to the prepared for refugees from Ukraine coming to Scotland. The Cabinet Secretary spoke of the need to support the integration of Ukrainians for as long as they want to call Scotland their home. For true integration, the Scottish Government must ensure that the workable plan is implemented now to allow for Ukrainian refugees to access long-term assistance.
Thank you, Mr.